Hey everyone, Crickcaster here, and today we're taking a look at all of the new equipment that came with this Dark Falls Aegis update in PSO2 NGS. This includes the Neos Astraean weapon series, the Ajax Armor, and a couple new augments, which includes the ARKS Domina we've been waiting for. I'll talk about all the details for each one, but let's first start off with the new weapons. So as you can see here, I have the wires for this Neos Astraean series, and I can just tell you right off the bat that this is the most powerful weapon that we have in NGS yet. It even trumps Gunblaze, all of the elemental weapons in their prime, even Cacophis against dolls. The reasons why is because you don't see the attack here on this, but once it's fully upgraded to plus 60, it gets up to 761 attack, which is the highest out of all of the weapons we currently have. But the most important part is the potential, the Flowing Spring unit. At level 4, it gets up to 32% potency, which is just huge. And then it also gets Photon Blast Gauge Charge when attacking plus 25%. Pretty much just like the Khazar weapon series, but slightly higher. And then also whenever you activate a Photon Blast, for 90 seconds you get PP consumption reduced by 15%. So this weapon can absolutely chug out some damage with that high potency and all the photon blasts that you'll be doing. It's going to be really great. But unfortunately, with this potential, it doesn't come with any crit rate. So with your damage, it might vary a whole lot because it still has that 50 to 100% damage adjustment or variance. But it's not the end of the world because you can still get fixes on these weapons. So that means it makes Fixa Fatale very important for this one. So you can crit a lot more, taking advantage of this high potency and kind of ignoring that variance in the first place. But where can you actually obtain this weapon? Well, currently there is only really one spot to obtain it, and that is the new Dark Falls Aegis UQ trigger. So this occurs around Halphinale Lake, and you need 3119 battle power to be able to enter. And then you have a chance of this dropping in that quest once you complete it. Unfortunately, it seems like this is the only way to obtain this weapon, because you can't even buy it in the personal shop, as this weapon is not tradable there. So because of that, it might take a while to actually farm the weapon that you need or the particular fixa that you want. But there is sort of a fail-safe to get a particular weapon, which is an Aegis Integra shop at the item trader. This trader can be found in any city, and then it's just the bottom option, this Aegis Integra exchange. And as you can see here, this is where you can also get these Neos Astraeans, but it needs this Aegis Integra material. So as far as I'm aware, you can only get this from the Dark Falls UQs or by trading in previous Neos Astraean series to get up to 5 per week. And then you take this 5 to be able to exchange for one particular weapon that you want. So like if you have a whole bunch of like wires, wands, boots, or whatever, and you wanted a katana in particular, then you could do that here. But that isn't the only option to get the particular weapon that you want for the Astraean series, as you can multi-weapon with a new weapon coming next week with the limited time quest, the 24-man one, the Neos Astraean series. So this is a light element but weaker attack power version that you can put into an Astraean series to like convert it to be Astraean. Pretty much the same way that Khazar and Khazar Mark 1 worked, where they're technically different weapons, but you can multi-weapon them together. That's pretty much it with this Astraean series, but for a quick comparison between the other weapons showing the numbers, well, as you can see, there's a lot of red. So the baseline is the Neos Astraean without a fixa, and everything in red there is just worse. So Cacophis even against dolls, mainly the Tenebris and Effulgent, except for high Fixa Fatale like 4 or 5. And Gunblaze still kind of keeps up, but you do need a fixa with that, even with the Gunblaze buff active. So unfortunately, if you invested like me in all these different kind of specific weapons for specific scenarios, this Astraean pretty much just trumps all that, like just in general. But you don't necessarily have to upgrade into Astraeans, because it isn't like a huge difference if you're not like a speedrunner or something like that. If you're just trying to clear content, then this isn't really that big of a deal. But if you're trying to go with like ARKS record like combat ones, or just trying to get faster times or solo purple triggers, something like that, then you probably want to go for the Astraeans and try to hope to get a Fatale 5 to drop for those. But now let's finally move away from this and actually go into the new armor, the Ajax Armor. So this is actually really good and can be earned in the Dark Falls Aegis quest as well. But it's not as high for DPS as the Claire Armor is. The reason why I say that is because it is a 3.5% all potency armor, so just short of a Claire at 4%. But it comes with positives and no negatives, so it has 30 HP and 5 photon power, as well as 1% damage resistance bonus. I would look at this as an improved Epidus armor. The reason why I say that is because Epidus falls short in every other category, but is kind of close. So 3% in potency, but only for 2, and 30 HP, which is the same, but 1 less photon power and no damage resistance bonus. So if you're using Epidus currently or something before that, you might want to look into using Ajax as an all-around kind of build for armor. But if you're using a Claire going for that DPS, I would just stick with this if you want to get those higher numbers. Now though, let's move into the new augments. So of course, with the Dark Falls Aegis fight comes a new boss soul called Aegis Soul, and this goes up to tier 4 and gives HP plus 5, photon power plus 2, and then potency plus 3%. And this isn't just for a single type, this is for all 3. So this is a great capsule to use just for any build, just to stick in that soul category. And of course, this opens up more potency for hybrid builds, because before they had to use either a Ratty Soul or Vardy Soul, which only gave 2.75% potency. So this is a little bump from them. And for these, just like every other high-level urgent quest, you can get 3 every time you complete Dark Falls Aegis, and you can even get a few extra if you're lucky. But you can also get them in that Aegis Integra shop that we were talking about a little bit ago. So if you go in here, and then go towards the bottom, you can actually get Aegis Soul 4s by turning in 1 Aegis Integra, and you get 10. But this can only be done once per week. Regardless of this limit though, you should be able to get plenty of Aegis Soul 4s as long as you keep doing that new urgent quest. But I want to just put these on your gear willy-nilly, because these are actually tied with the new ARKS Domina or the Halphinale. So the Halphinale is a new craftable augment in the item lab, which is on the top of the list. But it's actually quite costly because it takes 30 of these Aegis Soul 4s, as well as 10 of each of the different Dominas. This cost is justified though if you look at the stats. It gives 15 HP, 5 photon power, as well as 4% potency. These stats make this augment the best in the game currently. The potency is above all the other best in slot augments by almost like a whole %. And with that potency, it can be used for any build, like single type potencies or multiple types, just anything that you want to mix and match with. The caveat with this thing though is that it's going to make all of these augments very expensive or hard to obtain. So for the Aegis Soul, this just dropped, so it's going to stay expensive for quite a while. And then with all these Dominas, there's been quite a supply for certain ones, like Ale Domina and Red Domina, because they can drop in those yellow triggers. But if people are going to be eating these up and making this augment, it could deplete the supply and make these more expensive. So it could be worthwhile to maybe go to yellow triggers for those two, or even use previous notes to make them. But for Kvaris Domina and Styra Domina, these are going to be a little bit more difficult, because there's no yellow triggers currently that give these. So you're going to need to obtain the notes from these 2 regions, as well as get Blizzardium for the Kvaris Domina and Infernium for the Styra one. And then the kicker with this is that the success rate is very low, only 7% per capsule. So even if you get 10 of these, that only goes up to 70% without a booster. So you're going to need a 30% one, which is kind of harder to obtain to be able to guarantee the chance. So it might be worthwhile to actually use augment item protection on these, as well as high boosters, and gambit them one at a time in hopes that it just sticks on your armor or your weapons. On the flip side though, if you don't care about making these right away or ever, then you can actually take advantage of this and make a ton of money selling these different Dominas, selling different notes, as well as the new Aegis Soul 4s. This is going to vary from ship to ship on what's actually going to sell well, but for just an example of myself here, I've been selling a ton of the Kvaris Note Ds, Cs, and the Dominas for just tons of money. But I can imagine you doing this across all ships with this Kvaris version, as well as the Styra ones, because they're just hard to obtain, or the Ale and Ret ones. But you might be able to make some with those two as well, depending if people are just buying a ton of them and there's just not a huge supply. That is everything on this gear though. Let me know what you guys think of these different pieces, and if you're going to be using them yourselves. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next NGS video. Peace.